you, Mrs. Reagans. This is for the record. This regular board meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2520, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The Board of Education will conduct this meeting as a teleconference. Remote access to the Board of Education regular board meeting in compliance with the Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-2520 in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. The district is conducting this regular meeting as a teleconference. Please use the following toll-free number and meeting ID to call in. Open session, telephone 669-900-9128. Meeting ID 955-0752-8401, password 129179. The board agenda is available online. Public comment can be submitted via email to the superintendent's office at superintendent@TUSD.org. Submissions will be read at the public meeting. Submissions be received prior to the start of open session of the meeting. The guidelines for public comment are in Board Policy 2350, which is what we publish each and every board meeting. Back to you, Mrs. Reagans.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mannon. So we will go ahead and open this meeting. Excuse me. We have no closed session items. We did not have a closed session this evening, but we do want to call this meeting to order. And to begin, I want to welcome our guests. I know we have at least one student with us this evening, and anybody else who may have already joined us or joined us in the next few moments. We will go ahead and start with the pledge. And actually, Catherine, if I can ask you, even before you begin your tenure, if you could lead us in the pledge, that would be wonderful once the flag comes up.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good.
Behind you.
Perfect. Do I just go whenever or?
Yeah, just say hand over your heart, ready,
Awesome.
begin.
All right, put your hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Moving on, we need to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no report of closed session, as we said before. And our first order of business is a staff presentation and information, which is the introduction to the student representative that we just heard from. She will be representative to the board for the fourth quarter. And we're going to hear her comments once Dr. Egan gets us going. Dr. Egan.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagans. Good evening.
Uh-oh. There you are. Sure.
Oh, hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Catherine Mendoza. She is the ASB president and a senior at Torrance High School. Catherine is a member of Charter Ladies and is currently the club secretary. She is a 3-year member of CSF and has been involved in the Human Relations Club since her freshman year. She will be attending Marymount University of California, majoring in multidisciplinary studies with concentrations in digital communications and psychology. Before I ask her to speak, I want to add a couple of fun facts. She works part-time at Starbucks, and her mother was also the ASB president of Torrance High.
Thank you so much.
So Catherine, why don't you go ahead and tell us about what's happening with the students at Torrance High?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we can't be doing too much right now. All of this was a very big shock to us. But we definitely tried our best to still meet over Zoom as an ASB and post on social media like we haven't before, just constantly online asking kids like, how are you doing? What do you want to see us do? What are you interested in? How are you holding up and stuff like that? So as soon as school closed, we decided, okay, we have to do something. How can we get these kids' spirits up? I know a lot of the seniors are bummed, and we need to do something to just let them know that we're here for them and that Torrance High still cares for them. And so we decided to start a hashtag called Tartar Pride Means Stay Inside. We just decided that was a pretty creative way to get kids to stay safe, but also show us what they were doing. You know, they could post a picture of them watching their favorite TV show, and then they could use that hashtag and we could see it and repost it so others could see it. And it was just a really fun way to let kids still be involved and then just let them know that we're listening to them, we see them, and we hear them. And then we decided to step it up a bit with a virtual spirit week, which is basically what they did was each day was a different thing to do inside your house, and then they would tag our Instagram account and then we would post it. So Monday was Maroon and Gray Day, Tuesday was Top Chef Tuesday, Wednesday was What Are You Watching Wednesday, Thursday was BC Before Corona Thursday. Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then Friday was FaceTime Friday. So you could take a screenshot of you FaceTiming with your friends and post it. And it was just, we actually got a much larger response than we thought. So we were very excited about that. And the latest thing we've done is a TikTok challenge where each class, each grade made their own TikTok dance. So like all the freshmen had a dance, all the sophomores had a dance, juniors, seniors. And then they could post it, and it's kind of a competition to see which grade has the best dance or which grade had the most participants. And then at the end, there's going to be a combination of all 4 grades for even teachers to do. So yeah, that's so far what's going on. The kids are involved. They're staying as positive as they can. We have AP testing coming up, so people are starting to get ready for those. And other than that, we're just waiting to hear from the administration to see what we can do as far as like graduation and other stuff like that. So that's all with Torrance High so far.
Catherine, are you working with the administration to talk about culmination and graduation things?
I'm not
As
working
ASB?
directly with them, but Mr. Jones does relay the information to us. So he'll talk with Mr. Gerges and other people on that committee, and then he'll come to us for opinions and input and stuff like that.
Okay. And one other thing I wanted to ask you about was the Torrance High School video from the teachers. I assume you all have passed that around?
Yes, that was emailed to people and it was introduced on the Instagram, and a lot of kids like that. And one other thing I forgot to mention was it was Teacher Appreciation Week. So we sent teachers a video too, and they really liked it, and we were really happy about that. So yeah.
Ooh, I'd love to see that if you could send that to us too.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody have anything to say to Catherine? Mr.
Yeah,
Lee?
Catherine, teach us how to do a TikTok video for the board.
Oh my goodness. Honestly, as much as I adore TikTok, I honestly am not on it that much. So I only watch. I could never do all the crazy dances people do and the crazy songs. I watch it and I'm like, whoa, how do you guys do that? So I could honestly try, but I might not be the best person.
I've seen your sister do it though.
Oh yeah, my sister, she is all over TikTok. So
I know, because her sister, my daughter, is your sister's friend. That's why.
yeah, they're very good friends.
With James, you can help us.
Yes.
I think that was a good answer, Catherine.
Thank you.
I don't know about the board doing that, but that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys are still trying to keep together and have the school involved and the students involved in doing things. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And congratulations on Marymount. Good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That must mean you got into LMU, right?
It's Marymount California University.
oh,
It's a
that
private school in PV.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that Marymount. Okay.
Yes. It's
Fair
a very
enough.
small school.
Yes. No, we know it. We know it well. Okay.
What major are you going to go into?
It's multidisciplinary, so I'm doing digital communications and media with psychology.
Wow, that sounds great. Maybe
Yeah.
you should learn how to do TikTok from your sister.
Yes, yes, that would definitely come in handy for that major.
You see an online virtual teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And really do feel free to speak up during the meeting if there's something that comes along that you want to have a comment on, okay?
Of course, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to move on to oral communications for or unscheduled hearings for non-agenda items. I'm going to go ahead and read this, Dr. Mannon, and then I can abbreviate it on the second part. Is that okay with you?
It is, Mrs. Reagan.
Okay, so I do want to go ahead and read the instructions here. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public. In order to discuss district business in an orderly manner for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly, the board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. When addressing the board, speakers are requested to state their name, address the president from the podium, and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs any public meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. And that room means a virtual room or a real room, by the way. So Dr. Mannon, do we have any communications that need to be shared at this point?
Mrs. Reagan's, I have one email for communication tonight. It's actually signed by Deb Tabush, President of the Torrance Teachers Association.
Okay.
I am here tonight to celebrate the good things that can happen when the leadership of TTA and TUSD work together to accomplish a goal. Last week, which feels like an eternity ago, we worked together to complete an MOU, which is a memo of understanding, on how grading for our TK through 12th grade students will look for the remainder of this academic year. I appreciate everyone who worked to make sure that the process was done in a fair and equitable way. I'd like to give a special thank you to school board member Betty Lou, who reached out to make sure we were part of this grading process. Was it an easy process? No. It took many hours and days of hard work, dedication, and effort on both sides. This is the type of process that I truly hope becomes our status quo, and I will continue to strive for this kind of relationship. I hope that this is just the beginning of how TTA and TUSD can start to rebuild open communications and continue to work together on issues and concerns that face our local teachers and students. In closing, I would like to wish every educator, both in and out of the classroom, a great Teacher Appreciation Week. Your time, effort, and dedication to our community has not gone unnoticed and is nothing less than heroic. Thank you, and that's all I have for oral communication.
Okay, thank you, sir. So with that being all there is for unscheduled hearings, we'll move on to our discussion action items for the evening. There are similar instructions to the public there, and it's much abbreviated. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 2 through 4, as I just listed in the oral communications section. So moving on, we have item 10.2, which is the approval of provisional internship permit for qualified applicants. I think that's Dr. Liberati.
You need
It
a
is.
president and a motion and a second to get it on the floor.
Motion and second, please.
So move.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan's members of the board. It is a provisional internship permit, as you mentioned. This is fairly routine for personnel. In this particular case, we're asking for authorization to provide via the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, Ms. Cherie Davis, after having conducted a diligent search, the provisional internship permit which would allow her to be the authorized holder of and teacher of record. And that would be through this coming year. And it would allow her to work in the difficult credential of moderate severe.
So that means through this school year or through next school year, Mario?
This would be through next school year, or as long as it takes for her to complete her subject matter competency, which we believe should happen fairly quickly. With COVID, dates have been changed and things have happened. So
Oh.
she's working towards that. It may finish sooner. We expect that it will, but the PIP or provisional internship permit will be good through 2021.
Okay, and what was her last name?
It's Cherie Chavez, Chabis.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any other board members?
Those moderate and severe credentials are always nice to have around.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They are.
So
Anybody else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the provisional internship permit for qualified applicants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our next item is 10.3, approval of annual declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Can I get a motion in a second?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, and that's Dr. Liberati again.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan's members of the board. This indeed is our annual declaration of need for qualified educators for 2021, school years 2021. And this we project forward based on the past, the need of particular credentials or authorizations that we project to have in the district that may be working towards completion of their credential work. And so at this point, you can see there what we're expecting for this coming year. Of course, after having worked through a diligent search and not secured, this includes folks that may be working or completing their CLAD credential. We have down a librarian and potentially some special education credentials. Again, this is annual, it's routine for us. It's approved by the CTC to work through an annual process, and we're asking for authorization to move forward with this item.
Okay, any questions? Anyone? I just wanted to ask you, Dr. Liberati, this seems like a very small number of folks that we're asking for this dispensation for. Is that true?
Well, we base this on the past several years. So we're, as far as predicting the future is concerned, fairly confident that this will be what we need. If it changes, if it increases, we'll come back to you as a board for authorization. But based on the past, this looks like it's a pretty good projection.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, was there something, Betty? No?
No.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the annual declaration of need for fully qualified educators. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And that brings us to our consent agenda. I know we have 2 items that need to be pulled, that we might as well go ahead and do that. And then you can make your motion, Mr. Lee. The items that we need to look at individually are 13.2 and 17.7. So anybody else have any other items to pull?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
Wait, can I also 18.2?
Excuse me?
I like to pull 18.2.
18.2?
Yes.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
good. So I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 11 through 18, excluding 18.2, 13.2, and 17.7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent, except 13.2, 17.7, and 18.2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay, motion carried. So let's look at 13.2, it's the review of the Board of Education's June 19th, 2017 approval of procedures for the use of locally raised funds and consideration of extension thereof. Dr. Mannon, I think you have a public comment on that?
I do. This comment is from Julie Schenkel, Torrance Teachers Association. President Reagan's, members of the board, and members of the cabinet. This action item states the following: that approval was effective through the 2019-2020 school year, at which time the board indicated they would review those guidelines and determine if the authority for schools to utilize locally raised funds should be extended. So I have a few questions. What protocols did you use to conduct the review? Were stakeholders involved in any way in informing your review? How much time have you spent actually reviewing the efficacy of these guidelines? What are the results of the review? What do you feel that moving it forward at this time is the right thing to do without analysis and discussion of those results in public dialogue? How are you ensuring equity among students and sites? Why is the item buried in the consent agenda instead of being an action item with a presentation that is educating members of the board as well as members of the public? I hope you will consider postponing the vote until such time that a thorough review can be conducted and shared with shareholders in a public forum. Thank you, Julie Schenkel. And Dr. Kim is ready to respond, Madam President. I can respond to the very last item. Why is it under consent, if you would like for me to do that?
Okay, please do.
Our board policy indicates that the board president and superintendent makes a decision of where to put items on the board, or actually when to put items on the board agenda. Since this item has been before the board at least twice in the past, historically, that has moved this to a consent item for tonight's meeting. And as always, consent items can always be pulled for discussion. And with that, Madam President, I believe Dr. Kim can answer any other questions you may have.
All right, Dr. Kim, can you proceed?
Thank you, President Reagans. So for those folks who are not able to see the actual board item, this will extend the use of locally raised funds for 2 more years. A little bit of background. The Board of Education first approved the use of locally raised funds in order to fundraise for site employees 10 years ago in 2010. That initial approval lasted for 4 years, and then again in 2014, the board reapproved for 3 more years, and then again in 2017, the board again reapproved for 3 more years. The latest approval ends in June of 2020. Therefore, the item is on the agenda in order to extend it for 2 more years. In order to try to answer some of the questions brought up by Ms. Schenkel, I'll try to answer those now. So to begin with, what protocols were used? Each elementary principal is requested to review whether their site utilized locally raised funds for hiring employee positions and asked to gather information such as amounts raised, groups providing funding, fundraising activities, and employee positions hired during the last 3 years, as well as current employees currently under hire. This information was collected by my office. Were stakeholders involved? During the last 10 years that locally raised funds for employees has been in effect, there's been involvement by many various stakeholders, including individual parents, parent groups, staff members, and administrators. Again, this is the 4th time that this is being approved and looked at in the last 10 years. How much time has been spent reviewing? This is the 4th time, as I mentioned, in the last 10 years. The current review began on March 2nd and ended on April 24th. What are the results? In a nutshell, 6 schools collected approximately $796,000 and hired 16 different positions during the last 3 years. Why do you feel moving forward at the time is the right thing? Review has occurred, discussion is taking place now, and the issue is being decided upon in a public forum. How are we ensuring equity? Each school site has multiple sources of funding. They include, among others, base grant, supplemental funding, student achievement, and low performing student block grant, as well as some schools also receive Title I and other federal sources if they qualify. And I believe the last question was answered by Dr. Mannon. At this time, does the board have other questions?
Okay, anybody?
So let me just make a comment on this. Okay, so
This is, thank you.
I have an issue with this as well. And the reason why I have an issue with this is because of the fact that at Adams, I started an alliance there. So we had a John Adams Alliance where we started our golf tournament that we hosted every year. And so the alliance was there to raise funds for the school. And I had no problems with alliance. And I had the idea of having school generate their own funds. What I had a problem with is that we were told by the district that we had to shut it down. There was a movement where my understanding was that all alliances were going to close. This is 3 years ago. And because of that, our school, Adams, closed our alliance with the understanding that all the other schools were going to close their alliance. So to me, that to me seemed to be very unclear. And this was 3 years ago. We shut down that alliance 3 years ago because of the fact that we were told that we are not going to be doing this any longer. I think there was a lot of confusion with the funds, tracking the funds, accountability with the funds. And so that's what my understanding was. So I'm actually kind of surprised that these alliances are still going on. So was that ever mentioned about 3 years ago that this is prior for me coming on the board, that the alliances were going to have to shut down?
So to answer the question, if all alliances needed to shut down, I'm not aware of any specific direction from the school district or the Board of Education to shut down all alliances. Currently, one alliance at one of the schools is continuing to fundraise for this use of locally raised funds. Again, I'm not aware of all alliances being told 3 years ago that they needed to shut down and quit their activities.
But see, that's a problem that I have, though. Obviously, we were told. I'm the one who started this alliance, and so out of compliance, right, we shut it down. You can verify with Sheila Toronto, to be smart, that we were told that we were going to have to shut down the alliance because of the fact they didn't like the way, that obviously a lot of concern about money, and this happened near the time where the whole North Torrance situation happened again with the booster money. It was all in correlation that time period. And so because of that North Torrance booster money situation, it felt like the district was pushing forward to the idea that we don't want to have these alliances. And so that's why I think there has to be clarity on this, because obviously there wasn't clarity because we shut down the alliance.
I was around 3 years ago. And if anything, we had this conversation 3 years ago. It was a little controversial whether they're on an equity issue, but the majority of the board decided that alliances could go forward, and there was never. I mean, Lord knows those other schools would have been down with pitchforks and torches, and we ratified it. Now, who told your principal that they had to shut down an alliance was 100% wrong, because in fact, they've never been eliminated. We've talked about them enough, but they've never been eliminated. Now, was there an issue with bad accounting at North High School and some other stuff? Yeah. Is the board always concerned about ASB funds? Because you saw what we went through even in the most recent audit, where that's always a place where we have some concern. But I don't know who told who that, because it was 100% wrong. I mean, the board has never made any kind of noise that we were going to shut down alliances, because I know my phone would have just rung off the hook if we would have done that. So if you can identify who told you that, who officially from the Plaza del Amo told you that, maybe we'll have a conversation with them, because that there was no conversation at all among that board 3 years ago that we were shutting down alliances. Do we want to see accounting? Do we want to see, what the money's about? I think we made a decision maybe a year or two ago that all auxiliary groups have to give us their accounting and that kind of stuff, so we make sure there isn't any, issues with, as long as we got fidelity with the programs. But that's the only thing I think we've ever told any of these groups to do, was to just you know, you got to show us some accounting to make sure it didn't get spent on stuff it shouldn't be spent on.
So therefore, if that's the case, then Edon, are you getting statements from these schools, from these audits, from these alliances? So it seemed like all you got was a number, but who's auditing these guys? Who is keeping these guys on track? Because obviously, Don just said that, you know, we asked them to submit something to us. And so I want to know if that's been going on. Because we were never asked to submit anything to the district. Because our auspices is always underneath our what do you call it? You know, our corporation, we have our own entity, we have our own, you know, board of governors. You know, we had.
So there was a board policy where booster groups had to show, you know, their accounting and show their financials and stuff. And I think that decision was made a couple of years ago. There was a couple of issues that came up that were a bit of a concern. So that was kind of how we handled it. I think, Tim, you remember us talking about that a little bit.
That's what I was going to say. Dr. might be able to help us here.
Yeah, I think Dr. Stowe has a comment on this.
To mute yours. So my office does require organizations that are, we call them school connected organizations, SCOs. They need to submit paperwork annually to my office along with financials and you know, their mission statement and if they pay people. So that's the extent of what we have and what we collect. As to other foundations, other booster groups, they still operate as separate entities from the school district. Although we do have board policy on these school connected organizations that they need to submit this paperwork annually to ensure they have insurance and other kinds of things.
So have we been getting that paperwork? I'll be kind of curious to see that paperwork. I'll be very curious to see that because we never submitted anything at Adams to the district of our paperwork. And so if that policy was in place, we never knew that, you know, from Adams Elementary. So I'm very curious. I would like to see that report actually.
We've only started this, James, in the last couple of years, right, Tim? I mean, this was not something that goes back years ago.
I just want to see it. I'm curious because again, I started an alliance and I've been fighting to start more alliances, and it just seems like there's a little pushback. And so I'm going to be very curious to see how these audits. I'm kind of curious to see what they did, how much they raised, what they're using it for, what these salaries will look like. I'll be very curious for me to see, because for us, we used it for the for technology for the school. So everything we did was not for staff. We purchased items for the school, TVs, laptops, you know, whatever, you know, at the time, you know, Chromebooks, you know, that's what, everything went into technology for us. And so that's why for me, I'm very curious to see these audited statements and these statements from these for the past 3 years. So if you can send that to me, it would be greatly appreciated.
So, but James, I hear what you're asking, but Tim, are you saying the school connected organizations would include the alliances and the foundations or not?
We do ask for that. You know, any of the booster groups and organizations that support the schools, we do ask for that paperwork. They aren't audits. It's just basically paperwork that they submit to Francis Capistrano in my office. And a lot of times these groups, they request permits to use the facility. And that allows us to keep the paperwork on file that makes sure they have insurance and proper documentation as an organization, and that they're not an individual that's trying to use the facility. So they're not audits in any sense. It's just information we collect from the sites.
But Tim, that's radically different than, that's just permission of using sites. That's not the same as looking at the numbers and where the salaries are going. You know, this is where we help prevent any issues that these alliances go through. If there's any financial issues, it's going to come back on us, you know, because of the fact that they're working underneath the district, you know. And I think that there needs to be a little bit more accountability than if there's no issue, don't let us know. You know, all you're saying is they're just giving us permission for usage of facility. They have insurance. I don't know what that has to do about hiring staff, how they raise their funds, how much they raised, you know, or how much cash is involved. Are they using credit cards? I want to know all of that, you know, because again, I've been
Great.
there. Yeah.
Probably the way to solve this is we'll delay it for the meeting in June, or do you want to delay it to the meeting until August?
Why don't you ask Dr. Stowe how long it will take him to put it together?
Well, wait, can I make a comment? I think there's confusion here because I think Tim's talking about school connected organizations. The alliances and the foundations are not a school connected organization. Those are separate entities that are permitted by the state. So in fact, there's 501c3 laws that require them to do audits and to have accountability to the state,
Right,
rather than to the school district. So that's not information that we can require that they give to us, James.
But it's public information.
Well, not all of it though, Don.
I'm just following to what Don said earlier. That's what all I'm trying to follow up with Don saying about what we asked him before.
Well, we asked the school connected organizations though, not the foundations and the alliances. Those are different entities. It's like PTA. PTA doesn't report back to the district either, but they are a 501c3 and there are state requirements and auditing issues and et cetera, and compliances that they have to do in order to be a viable organization within the state.
But at the end of the day, they need our permission to exist as an organization. If we don't give that permission, they don't exist.
They need our permission to be on campus. They don't need our permission to be an organization.
Correct. And if I may, Mrs. Reagans, we do ask the principals to, we don't necessarily know of all the alliances or
Right.
booster groups that are out there. And so we communicate with the principals and ask them each year to have any of these groups that, even if they're separate from the school district, that they submit the school connected organization paperwork, so that we know who their officers are, we know how they're doing their fundraising and how much they estimate to fundraise and what those funds go for. So there are, you know, at the high school, we've got some different booster groups that support athletics or band. At the middle schools, I'm not sure we have any, and at the elementary school, we've got at least one alliance. And so we do ask for this information. Again, it's just to have on file. It's to protect us as a district from you know, any liability,
Right.
and make sure that these groups do have proper paperwork and insurances as separate entities and organizations. And if they make a donation to the district, then we have record that they are indeed a school connected organization.
But see, my point is here, though, the booster clubs and all that stuff, it's underneath our district. These are our district things. The booster clubs.
Not all of them.
They're
Not all of them.
503s, many of them.
See, again, this is where I get confused, because every school is so different. And
They are different.
I wish that we had some uniformity. Like, I'm only speaking from what I know at Torrance High School. Torrance High School is just basically, we just give it to the business office. Everything goes through the business office at Torrance High School, right? We don't have a booster club at Torrance High School. Now, obviously, everyone does it so differently, and no one knows what's going on. And I'm sitting as a board member, and it's like wild west out there when it comes to raising money. You know, it's like, these guys do it this way, these guys do it this way, these guys. And we're loud saying, hey, okay, do whatever, just don't get in trouble. And if you get in trouble, oh, we got to figure that out. This is not good. I think this.
But James, can I correct you on one thing? This particular item was intended to allow for organizations to raise money in order to hire staff. In order to do that, the money does go to TUSD. We know exactly how much money they're actually putting into our coffers at TUSD, because TUSD then does the hiring to expend that money on the staff. So the organizations themselves are not hiring staff members, but it's going through TUSD. So we do have a handle on that.
Okay, so
Reagan, yes, that is correct. All money that is donated or raised goes into our own TUSD donation accounts, and then the people are paid through TUSD. On its very surface here, what we're talking about is allowing elementary schools to continue use locally raised funds to hire additional personnel. This is for elementary schools only. So I don't want to get it confused with high school athletics or high school booster clubs or any other clubs beyond elementary school. As I mentioned, 6 elementary schools in the last 3 years have used this ability. Overall, in the last 10 years, 11 elementary schools have used it, just not all of them in the last 10 years, and only 6 of them in the last 3 years. So again, this is just basically allowing elementaries to continue to use those funds. And the vast majority of the funds do actually come from the PTA. Only 1 school has generated funds for this purpose from an alliance. So for the rest, it is mostly PTA money that it's coming from.
And can I also just add really quick, James, it might help that the majority of what Edon is talking about, they're hiring additional teachers that are providing intervention support at the schools. There's an approval process for that goes through school site councils, then it goes in through the categorical funding office. So, and it's in their single plan. And so the donation money comes to the district, and then they get trained and they follow the same, guidelines that govern our LCAP and our single plans at our school.
And I understand that. But so then the question that I want to understand, Ed, is I don't know how you guys got around the equity piece. How is this equitable when 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 4 schools have additional staff. 4, right? Out of how many? 18? And so I want to understand how this is equitable.
God, the board had that conversation a couple of times.
Many times.
With an entire full, the board went through this, Terry, 2 times, 3 times? It feels
3
like
times.
it's painful every time I talk about it. But we went through this a number of times with the previous board. If we want to do it again, we're more than welcome to. There's certainly, I don't think any time it went 5-0 when it was before the board the last time. And you're right, there is a perceived equity issue, and on both sides of the equation, and whether it should be allowed or not be allowed, and all that ground was pretty well tilled over the last 3 times that we talked about it. But probably not a bad idea that we bring it back, but we'll have to notice all those schools, and it'll be challenging in a Zoom meeting, but it probably can be done. But you'll have hundreds of people that will have an opinion on it, and it's probably a good conversation to have at this point with 3 new board members and deciding whether this is something that you want to continue or not. So you push it out. If you're going to want the big alliances are ANZA and Riviera, if you want them involved, then probably we'll need to push this into the fall, and maybe we'll be in real meetings by then. Maybe we won't, and we can have that conversation. But I'm not too sure. But don't we have to approve this by July 1st?
Mr. Lee, just to comment, if I may, you are correct in that it would end, the authority would end at the end of the month of June. If in fact you want to be able to do this so that those schools could have people here, I'm going to suggest that you table the motion and you move it not until August. I'd move it till September, and that way Dr. Kim can go back and tell the elementary schools that are involved. But let's be clear, this is an elementary issue, and therefore that's who would be involved with.
If I can now give my comment. So I agree that the only issue is the equity issue. The problem with postponing the vote is that we, by not having a vote, are telling a very large group of parents that they cannot provide services to the children in their school that they've been providing for many years. So by not having a vote today, we end that because they can't budget and hire people in September when the school year started in August. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind, that if we do table it, that is a decision in and of itself that affects children and parents. Thank you.
You know,
Mr.
maybe the other thing to do
President,
is,
could be an outcome.
well, we can approve it for a year. I mean, because we're kind of in a weird time. So approve it for a year from July 1st to June 30th. And then let the board, when things are a little mellower and the public input process can be a little easier and everything else, revisit all the equity issues and everything else that the board dealt with the last 3 times we dealt with it. Because if you deal with it in a year, all 5 of those people will have never dealt with it. So it'll all be new information, probably not a bad idea for them to review it.
So, Mr. Lee, are you making a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the alliance for 1 year and to bring it back before the board with adequate time for them to make modifications if they see so. So, bring it back in March of 2021.
Okay, so you're making a motion to amend the item that's on the agenda. So you need an amendment motion is where
I'm making a motion to approve with the amendment that it's approved for 1 year. And as part of it, the whole item conceptually, everything that comes with it is brought back before the board in March of 2021.
And you need a second.
I second that motion.
Okay, I just wanted to add that I had this discussion with Dr. Mannon actually at length, and I do believe I'm actually one of the people that has an issue with this entire thing, but it was begun during a time of extreme financial need when the schools the parents at the schools felt the extreme need to try to supplement what we could provide because of the lack of state funding. That will be ever so much more so in the next year and or 2, so that even thinking about not continuing it for that period of time was almost impossible for me. Secondly, I think it does demand a huge discussion with hundreds of people. I think we might even want to have a town hall on it and separate it out from a meeting rather than have it sort of monopolize a board meeting. But to have everyone have an opportunity again for the 3rd time to represent their perspectives and their needs and their preferences, and then have it all out in the open once again and see what the board members do think at the time. I don't know that this time and place, with the lack of communication and the problems with communicating with large groups of people, is the time or place to do that. So those were the considerations in putting it into the consent for 2 years. It's the shortest term. We went from 4 years to 3 years to 2 years. 2 years would take us to the end of the interim superintendency. And then the new superintendent could weigh in on their perspective also.
I know, and I appreciate that, but that's why I think it's 1 year. I think it's 1 year. And I think, if it happened during, that's funny how you say that, Terry, because I would say in a time of financial distress, that's the worst time to hire someone.
That's when the parents want to do it though, James, because they want to give more.
That makes the equity piece even that much less equitable.
No, that's when your parents want to do it too.
You have all the schools suffering, and so you have this one rich school that benefits because they can do so, and yet everyone else suffers. It just, to me, how is that equitable at the end of the day?
I don't disagree with you.
You will hear the arguments. You will hear the arguments.
Yeah,
I really don't disagree with you, James.
Yeah.
But putting the genie back in the bottle is going to be awfully hard.
Right, and I get that. Again, I'm like I said, I started an alliance. I'm for the alliance idea, right? And I you know what? And I think that every school should have the opportunity. Again, I'm a full opportunist, right? But my thing is that I think what I had a problem is that there was no attempt to even inform other schools about these things. Schools don't even know how to start an alliance.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. We did a huge campaign, in fact, with the successful associations working with the other schools in all areas of town, trying to help them start new alliances. And in fact, some did start in the North End for a short period of time. But yeah, you'll find all of that out. We can go through this again. It's all right. There's cycles for everything.
Okay,
That's
so
good.
Yes, I want to just add something real quick.
Yes, please, Betty.
Mrs. Reagan's actually pointed out what I was going to say, especially in the next couple of years. We all know that there's going to be a financial problem for not just our school district, but almost all school districts in California and perhaps some in other states too. I don't see this as an equitable problem between our board members, us board members. I think you guys know that I was very concerned about having grades be letter grade instead of pass, no pass, because I was very worried about the digital divide that exists here in Torrance. In this particular case, I see one, we don't know what's going to happen exactly to our school budget yet because we haven't received any information from state. We haven't received the income taxes yet, as you all know. So without knowing how much money we're going to have or how much staff we're going to have, cutting off the supplementary funds that we can use is going to be a big mistake for our district. I think what we have done with the passing of this law provision 10 years ago is to address the financial problem that we had. If we do this now, it's pretty much saying, no, we don't want this to happen anymore. And we don't want to have a program like this to support our students. In terms of equity, I think it's also not fair, if you want to argue it that way, that some parents can afford to have their kids hire tutors, and then we can't stop them from hiring extra help to help their kids. I would much rather that they spend their money by donation through an entity that's related to the school, so that our school principals and through the district can hire additional help. I just really think this is not a good time to do this. I am for just approving the consent item as is to go forward for 2 years. Otherwise, I just don't think this is right to stop it all of a sudden. Definitely not for this coming year, but it's not the right thing to do, to cut off the funds. And furthermore, just one last point is that I'd rather these parents give these donations, like I was saying, than take their kids out of the public school system, which will hurt all of us more. They're willing to donate their money, and there's a lot who don't donate, but they're willing to donate and share the intervention teacher or art teacher or music teacher among everybody in the class. So my position is not going to be approving it just for 1 year. I would much prefer it being approved for 2 years, as stated in the agenda. Thank you.
Any other comments from board members or questions or anyone else? Okay, so we have actually two motions. The first is an amendment to the item. The amendment was to alter the time frame from 2 years to 1 year. So the first thing we're going to vote on is that amendment. Do we want to amend it from 2 years to 1 year in the item? Okay, everybody understand?
Well, in fact, you know something? Let me withdraw my motion. Let Betty make the motion the way it is. And then if that fails, then we can come back, because that's actually the longer of the two terms. So if we end up approving both of them, it's going to be kind of confusing.
Okay, so you're going to remove your amendment.
I've withdrawn my motion.
So we already have a motion and a second to approve it as stands, as a 2-year approval.
Okay. So then let's do that vote.
Okay, any last comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the item, the review of the board's, Board of Education's June 19th approval of procedures for the use of locally raised funds and consideration of extension thereof for 2 school years. All those in favor?
Mrs. Reagan,
Yes.
would you go by roll call? Roll call, please.
Yes, we certainly can. Can we do is Shelley with us?
Shelley is with us.
Shelley, can you do a roll call so we can get the vote? So this would be an all in favor. You're going to say aye or nay, whichever it is when she calls on you.
And this is for
the 2 years, for the 2 years, as the item as it's written in the agenda. He removed his amendment.
Terry, I'm not sure we made the motion for this yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think we have either.
No, we did have, okay, can I get a motion in a second, just to make sure?
I'll move to
Okay,
keep the
Betty's
agenda
moved.
item as is.
You have a motion.
Okay. Is there a second? I second. I can second. So we have a motion and a second to approve the item as written in the agenda. Okay, Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
Reagan,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Liu,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
No.
Mr. Gerson,
No.
Okay, so motion passes 3-2. So we will extend that for 2 years. In the meantime, we will have the discussion and gather information that Mr. Hahn has requested and further elucidate how all of that is working for us. Okay, so Dr. Kim, you have your marching orders on that, okay? So then we will go on to the next item that was pulled, which is item 17.7. It's to ratify a contract with the Design Works for Torrance High School's new varsity softball field landscaping and irrigation design services. And actually that was mine, and I wanted to look at 17.7 through 0.10, but started with 17.7. We had on our agenda, if you all remember, 2 meetings ago, maybe even 2 meetings ago, I think though, an item to talk about this project and sort of give an overview of it. And that was actually pulled from the agenda at that point because that's when we first started having virtual meetings. And at this point, we are actually expending money and moving forward. And I just wanted people to know what we're spending money on and what the whole thing is that we're working on here and where the money's coming from too, Dr. Stowe. I'll let you go ahead and share that.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagans and board members. So this is a project for a softball field on the Torrance High School campus. If you will remember, or I know you're all aware, Torrance High School is the only school that doesn't have a girls softball field physically on the campus. Our girls have to go over to Torrance High School, or excuse me, to Wilson Park from Torrance High every day to practice. They have a storage container over there that's in the Scott parking lot. We worked with the city to cut a hole in the gate to have access to that on a daily basis. And the fields there, they aren't in very good condition. It's a public park. And so for a lot of reasons, we have begun to build or design, is in the planning process, a softball field on the Torrance High School campus. The funds are state funds for capital improvements only. They're matching funds that we receive based on the construction that occurred throughout the school bond measures. And so these are, again, capital funds that need to be used for that designated purpose. And we, in working with the school site, Mr. Gerges has been our point person. And he's worked with staff members there to ensure that the field that we hope to build based on the design that is on the agenda tonight, the different engineering and work that needs to be done in order to bring to the board ultimately contracts to do construction, that this is going to be something very special for the Torrance High School community and the girls softball program.
Okay, can you talk about the 3 sets of engineering companies that are being hired and what they'll be doing?
Sure. So the different engineering firms are doing different things. So for example, the Palos Verdes Engineering, they're doing a site plan, some topographic work to ensure that the field is level, and they're doing some work in the parking lot. One of the other contractors is doing the overall site plan. They're doing the fire access and field evacuation area. And then others are taking care of the existing fencing along the parking lot behind the district office. They're looking at the structurally the different the fencing needs for that, and they're doing the design work there. And then the MDC is taking care of all the design as it relates to electrical and water. Because of ADA compliance, we need to make sure that we have, proper access, as well as, bathrooms and other kinds of facilities that are accessible.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, Mr. Lee, go ahead.
I think the genesis of this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. Because Torrance High was having trouble getting space at Wilson Park just to practice and do those kinds of things, because there'd be other competing items. The only other city facility we use for a sport is actually it's the baseball field at Torrance. The Torrance High uses at Torrance Park, but that historically goes back to the 20s and 30s, and that for most part is a dedicated baseball field for Torrance High. But to give what's cool about this is, and this is kind of, we spent millions of dollars on football fields and gymnasiums and those kinds of things, but really nothing that specifically is for the girls' sports. And this will give girls' sports, and certainly probably one of the larger girls' sports for as far as participation goes, softball, a state-of-the-art facility on the Torrance High campus. And the other thing that's kind of funny that I don't know that everybody knows is this will be the only outdoor sports field for organized sports on the Torrance High campus. Now, 40, 50 years ago, they were all there and they all got kind of moved away. The football stadium's, half a mile away, and the baseball stadium's a half a mile away. The pool, but everybody's pool's a half a mile away. But all that stuff got pushed away. And this was an opportunity to really put a facility on the school site that they can be proud of, in a state-of-the-art facility. And hopefully in time, because there'll be more capital money hopefully coming down the line as bonds get passed and those kinds of things, that I hope future boards would look at additional girls softball fields on the other high school sites that are more state of the art, because certainly they deserve it.
Mrs. Reagans, may I go next?
Yes, please, Mr. Gerson.
I do agree with Dawn, since we were just talking about equity, that we did spend a significant amount of money on the boys baseball field next to the aquatic center. And it would be nice to spend an equal amount or similar amount of money for the girls softball program. Although in honor of my wife, I do have to say that they do have beautiful tennis courts over there as well. But one thing that I don't think the community knows, and there might be a little confusion about, is that the money is coming from a great place. And I was wondering if Dr. Mannon would explain to the community how this gets paid for. It's not general fund monies, or if you please, Dr. Mannon.
Yes, Mr. Gerson, thank you. Once we build, whether it's a building or in this case an auditorium or a gym, and we always apply for any state funds that are available. In fact, we have done some construction, and it was CTE funds, and we applied, for those. Well, we've already done our building, so we were approved by the state. So when those funds come back to the district, those funds are capital, so they have to be done on capital projects, but the board can utilize those funds on any capital project. So this is completely, and when you get the cost for a construction contract, you will note that the complete cost of this project is out of state funds.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Thank you, Mrs. Reagan.
Thank you. Anything else on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to ratify a contract with a variety of different things. Since I pulled 17.7 with the design works for Torrance High School, new varsity softball field, landscape, and irrigation design services. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, new softball field coming to Torrance High. And last but not least, we have item 18.2, which is to approve change orders for installation of security cameras at middle school gymnasiums. I think that was Mr. Hahn.
Yeah, I just have a quick deal on this, on the cameras. Is it gonna be indoor or outside the gymnasiums? I wasn't sure.
These cameras are outside the building.
Outside the building, okay.
And actually, the change order is to remove these cameras. They were never ordered.
Okay.
There are 3 cameras, and they were 180-degree cameras that were to be installed on the exterior of the Magruder and Madrona gyms, but the manufacturer went out of business.
Oh.
So they don't make them anymore. When the cameras were all designed back in 2017, well, you know, stuff happens. So they're no longer making these. What we were able to do was use existing cameras that were mounted onto the buildings and angle them in a certain way to cover those areas that the 180-degree cameras would have covered. So that's why we're getting, well, we were never built. It's just a deduct. We're just removing those 3 cameras from the scope of the project.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure it was indoor or outdoor, what those cameras gonna look.
Yeah, all of our cameras are outdoors, at least on the gyms.
Well, I noticed this item too, mostly because of what Mr. Mara just said, that it's a deduct, it's not an addition. It's rare that we see the cost of a project reduced.
Well,
Actually on 18.8, you've got the other half of this, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
Yeah, in this case, it's because the cameras no longer are being made. And we have a Sony cameras. During the last, I think, board item, you also approved some additional cameras. So Sony is no longer selling cameras in the United States either. So Bosch has taken over all of the Sony surveillance cameras in the US. So any future cameras that we install will be Bosch. Depending on where pricing is, Sony's, you know, they're phasing out the, you know, the label and the brand of Sony. And the nameplate may just be Bosch. Technology pretty kind of similar, but Bosch says they're better. But you know.
So we now have Sony cameras that will no longer be supported by a company. Is that what you're telling me?
They'll still be supported. They're all under warranty.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments about this item? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the change orders for installation of security cameras at middle school gyms. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We are down to information, item 19, the board calendar. Again, it's unfortunate that there's many cancellations here and sort of many things up in the air, but check out our ongoing calendar for the school year. And we have comments from members of the Board of Education. Mr. Hahn, do you have a report from SoCal Rock?
No, we haven't met yet, and so I think we're meeting soon. Yeah, so I haven't heard from Dr. Halal for a while, so I'll send him an email out just to know where we're at.
Okay, that would be great. Anyone else have any other comments they want to make before we end off the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Gerson.
Betty, I think you're mute.
Oh.
You did? Did you want to go before me? I saw your mouth.
Go ahead. Feel free.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Just a couple of things. So CSBA Delegate Assembly's first meeting is coming up, and they have several votes on items that we'll be looking at. And second thing is that I wanted to remind everyone that on May 13th, it is California Day of the Teacher. And I'd like to thank all of the teachers in our district for everything that they're enduring right now. I've spoken to a lot of high school students at each of our high schools who've been sending me updates, telling me how hard most of their teachers are really working, and with online classes and keeping open office hours, and they've expressed their appreciation. So thank you, and May 13th, Day of the Teacher.
All right, cool. Mrs. Liu, did you have something to add?
Yes, I just have one announcement. In regards to the robotics teams at in our district, a couple of meetings ago, I mentioned that South High School and West High School won the LA regional tournament for the first, that's FIRST tournament. Well, after that, they had to cancel all the tournaments, regional tournaments, because of COVID-19. But they held a celebration, an announcement in Sacramento for the Chairman's Award of FIRST. And I'm going to be reading this. The Chairman's Award is the most prestigious award at FIRST. It honors the team that best represents a model for other teams to emulate and best embodies the mission of FIRST. So I want to say congratulations to South High Torbots in winning the actual Chairman's Award.
Nice.
Okay.
Great. Yay.
Good stuff.
Those
Thank
are the
you,
smart
Mr.
kids that are going to save
Mr.
us.
Hahn, did you have something to add to?
I just want to reiterate what Jeremy was saying. So this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. I know the schools are all working hard and doing things to appreciate our teachers. So for all the parents out there, if we can, especially this week, they've done so much, and they have really put the effort out there to help our students as much as they can. I know there's been a lot of knock about how the kids are not getting educated, it's not the same and all that, but I know the teachers are doing the best that they can. So we appreciate all of you, and we want the best for you. Second of all, last Friday was National Signing Day for all our seniors, for the colleges. And so for all the seniors out there, congratulations for whatever decisions you made. At the same time, I know for the senior class, it's also a very difficult time because they're not sure if there's going to be class in the fall with the dorms or whether there's going to be online. So I know there's a lot of uncertainty, even not even just graduation, but the fall. But I want to encourage all you seniors out here. You guys have accomplished so much. You finished the race. You actually graduated. So we're going to be graduating. So we want to congratulate all of you. As I think about the senior class, this senior class was born the year of 9/11.
I know.
Going to graduate with COVID. And when you think about all that they have gone through, this class is going to be the most resilient class ever. So congratulations, seniors. Wherever you went to, we wish you the best, and just want to say best to all of you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lee, any last words today?
Yeah. May 13th is the Day of the Teacher, which James and I share something that we both sleep with a teacher. But, you know, that's okay because we're married to them, so that's better. But and he's watching his wife, and Lord knows I'm watching my wife spend all day in front of a Zoom meetings and stuff like that. I'm not quite as busy, even though I'm trying to be that busy, but I'm not quite as busy as she is. So my heart, my appreciation goes out to all the teachers. But, you know, the other side of it is, which I've been reading a little bit about, is the mom and dad that are both at home, both still have full-time jobs. And in between, they got to help, you know, Junior get educated, get him on the Zoom meetings and do all that kind of stuff. And for those of you, you know, Jeremy, James, certainly Dr. Stowe, and certainly to Catherine and everybody else, or Ben and Betty, that all have to do that. I don't have to do it anymore. my heart goes out to you, and there probably should be a special day for all of our ad hoc teachers called mom and dad for the rest of the year, because that looks like a hard job. Anyway, on that note, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a few comments I want to make before we do that, if you don't mind. I want to jump on the bandwagon too and talk about Teacher Appreciation Week, because this is the week that we are appreciating our teachers wherever you find them and however you find them. But for me in particular, I'm so touched by the extreme hard work and caring that our teachers have shown to our students here in Torrance. And I see videos of all of the caring and outreach that they're doing to make their students feel cared about and make sure that they do the learning that they need to do. So I truly thank you all for the work you're doing now and what you will be called upon to do in the future, whatever that may be down the road. So we will be working with you, I promise, to create whatever that is in the near future. So that's this week or next week for some of you at the schools. But there's also the week of May 17th through the 23rd is Classified School Employees Week. And I just wanted to highlight that to make sure we recognize that actually all of our employees are working hard and trying to get food in the mouths of our kids and keep our schools functioning in some way so that education is still happening. The school facility may be closed, but education is still happening. And I do have a few classified employee anniversaries to identify. For 10 years of accredited service, we have Ashley Patino. For 15 years of accredited service, we have Poonam Dewan, Victor Ramirez, Christine Takahashi, and June Yasaki. And then for 20 years of accredited service, we have Lisa Laranjo and Nancy Salcido. So those folks are keeping our schools going. Their caring about our teachers is so obvious and heartfelt. And if you have a chance to, especially to see the Torrance High video from the teachers, that is what it's all about. The Torrance High cares, and Torrance TUSD does care about our students and our teachers and all of our staff. So thank you all for holding us together. Okay, so now Mr. Lee.
Can I make one announcement before I forget?
Sure.
So by the way, just to make an announcement for all the parents out there, our time for feeding the breakfast and lunches is from 8 to 12. We reduced it an hour, so just make a kind of public announcement starting today. So 8 to 12.
What, 8 to 12?
Yes, is the handing out the lunches and breakfasts.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear because they're still out there. I go by all the one. Actually, I've been by several of them, and they're hardworking people. By the way, many of them are distributing other things aside from even just food. So there are other needs that our community members have, and we're trying to. Our school community is trying to meet those needs in many, many ways. So thanks everyone for stepping up to do that. So that having been said, any last words? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, see you all.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, good night.
Stay healthy.
For sure.